Why don't you give the chicken to these people? Let's go on up and have some sauce.
So here's the rest of the chicken, you guys.
Hey y'all, this is your girl BMORE, and today we are going to be talking about the full moon in Taurus starting on November the 5th. So this full moon in Taurus, we will be undergoing a lot of adjustments. So here we have to examine work and our work ethic. Do we have some type of service or anything that we can offer to society? We also will be examining childhood and home life and daily routines, and also our values. We may have to end up adjusting our values. This can really stem from the idea of early childhood development, being able to really offer things to people, also our general health as well. So hygiene, really taking care of ourselves, and some diseases or afflictions to Venus. And so some of those might be things around the throat. So we can see issues or diseases around the thyroid, the neck, tonsils, but we can also see things around the kidneys and the hormones and maybe even menstrual issues. All of those kind of come into effect, and are we actually using our skills and resources effectively? And this full moon comes into a time where we have to realize what is it that we value, what gives us stability and security, and how we really can materialize these things in very appropriate ways. Now, with Taurus being the earthly sign that it is, it often deals with the conundrum focusing on money and resources and talent, and being able to possibly even monetize that into like material possessions. But here we do have to realize that money and resources are not everything. They're not the whole thing. They don't make up all of the values or what kind of makes us up. That's not enough to make us feel stable. So that is something that we would have to just call into question or be forced to examine. The other thing is we really seem to value our home life, value our family, value our upbringing. We can be seen as a bit of traditionalists, but here we start to see that we may have to establish diverse values. We can have this dynamic where maybe we have an income or value or monetary things that we earn, or even self-esteem by way of the home or real estate, geology, anything that really comes through the earth or the ground. Okay, but trying to figure this out in the changing type of dynamics is really interesting. For us, this will be a great time to plan, organize, get some structure, and finish up on any of tasks that kind of are left undone. We can also use this time to tap into romance, creativity, and really get into our intuition. This can be seen as a very optimistic, positive time period for us. Maybe even for some people dealing with some forms of legalities, this may work a little bit for them to maybe have that, deal with religion, education, or communication from very far off. Where the struggle may be, we may have some issues with authority figures. We may have issues with self-esteem and proper leadership. We may bump into some problems around being confident, feeling the idea of shame and rejection, feeling the idea of competition. That's another thing. How to compete and what is appropriate competition amongst other people, ourselves. Maybe we didn't realize that we end up valuing that part of ourselves, or finding some way to really assert ourselves in these types of ways. And for some people, they may have certain forms of self-expression that might be seen as more risque, maybe sexy, and even certain things that might be seen as taboo altogether. We may have to examine our feelings around power and powerlessness. And so we really have to dig deep and really understand this. We may bump into situations where we are at odds with people and we really don't understand why. The odds can really come into the effect of frustration, delays, issues with relationship, not a proper give and take or support system or uplifting energy. We can even run into financial problems. But whatever the case may be, we may run into controlling and manipulative people, and particularly family members, and really specifically, if we're getting really down to the nitty-gritty, women, because both the moon, both Venus are signifiers for women, or they're seen as feminine planets. So that could be a bit of a doozy, and it can be a real struggle. Some of the adjustments that we can make is we need to take a step back. There can be some problems with really sorting out our own problems. We really don't know our heads from our tails at this point for some people, and they really just don't understand. We really just don't understand much. So we have to align our emotions and intellect. I understand, like, the moon and Venus, and particularly the moon, is a very emotional planet and a very sensitive planet, and how we kind of receive and internalize a lot of things. But we do need to take a beat, because all of this emotionalism versus trying to be intellectual structured, it's very hard. And so it's very hard for people to come have some sense about themselves and solve the problems that may arise. There can also be some issues with secrets, people's secrets coming out, things being revealed, because people want to blurt out things without necessarily thinking. So I would tell people, if you have any type of things you would like to keep to yourself, or anything that cannot be repeated, don't. We also need to deal with that low self-esteem, like I talked about before. I do see that there could be a problem where people will try to kind of like bend to the will of other people's and their opinions of you. And remember, there's some relationship problems coming in, especially with the whole Pluto thing. And we have to understand that opinions are subjective, and sometimes people don't always see us clearly how we see them, because people have their own biases. And so sometimes people project their biases or make assumptions that may or may not be accurate. So we should not kowtow too much to other people's opinions of who we are. Okay, that is subjective. Try to keep it on the facts. Did you or did you not do something? Not how people think, what they feel, because it's very easy to get wrapped up in it. And remember, like I said before, emotions, intelligence, not necessarily on the same page. Very easy to kind of get like sideswept and kind of pulled off of like the guide rails with that one. We also do this whole random opinions of what people think you are, who you are. We also see that maybe we attract people that maybe want us to prove to ourselves, or prove to them more so, I would say, prove to them who we are as a person. Because of all of this over the top or extremeness, particularly over decadence or overindulgence, whether it be indulgence in emotions, you name it, anything that you could just go above with, even people pleasing, this can kind of create diseases. So we need to really evaluate what's important and come up with a delineation between our desires and emotion, because all of that conflict can really create a lot of emotional irritability, anxiety, accidents, for some people digestive issues. And we need to make sure we're not becoming too overly involved in people's affairs, because Venus is the planet of relating and relationships, and it's very easy for us to get wrapped up in other people's affairs, other people's dramas, a lot of this types of stuff. So this is why this kind of thing will be adjusting our values, home life, childhood life, resources. How much can we really give? How much can you actually do? You just can't really do everything and be everything for everyone. There has to be some boundaries and parameters kind of put up. And I'll say the main problem would have to be some of the kind of odd dynamics what Venus has with or the moon also has with its ruler, and this kind of uncomfortable 6-8 relationship where feeling like we need to prove ourselves to people and bowing too much to their opinion. We can't really be everything to everyone. It's really impossible at this point. And for people who won't put up any boundaries here, this can really cause for a lot of health issues. I also see too the idea of jealousy, possessiveness, control problems, especially with Venus and luxury. And so I would really sometimes suggest people to prepare over these next 2 weeks, because this kind of transit for the full moon lasts for about 2 weeks. Make sure we have a little bit of a modesty here, because you're going to have people be jealous, possessive, and controlling around certain things that really don't belong to them, or they're inaccessible. So some people are going to be doing this with people who are emotionally unavailable, people who are literally unavailable, like they're married, they're far away, like we can't get them, or things that don't belong to them, like I'm jealous of your shirt, or I want to possess or occupy your car, you know, girl, your hair's longer than mine's, you name it, they're mad about it. So I would really suggest, not saying not to have your things, but understand that this will kind of be an uptick of control and jealousy and all this other stuff. If you really don't want to deal with that, I would say a little bit of modesty goes a long way in keeping your business to yourself. I know it's very hard because there's already something in here where people get very anxious and they just blurt out anything, but keep some good news to yourself. It's not that we don't think people can be happy for us, but we understand how transits work. You can't be happy for me right now, and I'm okay with that. Maybe later when things break up, yeah, you could be happy for me, but in this moment right now, no, you can't. And I'm okay with that. And you have to make peace with that, or there are going to be some more relationship problems and issues down the road. And a lot of this can kind of like also stem from needing to heal relationships, because Venus also makes some interesting aspects with Chiron. And so needing to heal some of these relationship traumas and these wounds, and actually process these types of dynamics, and also healing that, being able to heal dynamics with our desires. So things that we find pleasurable, issues with vehicles, issues with luxury items like clothes, perfumes, issues with women and freedom, all types of things, issues with money. These can really kind of like stem or kind of come up. We also see people also overcompensating by being overly indulgent. And remember I said, if you be overly indulgent, you can maybe disease kind of forms, especially since this is our first 6th house dynamic, and diseases kind of form out of that anyway. So we will have to be mindful of that. The last thing I would really tell you guys to be mindful of before we, slide on out would be, we have to worry about the dynamics of how Venus is positioning itself with some of the other planets here too. I noticed that there tends to be a good earning capacity. This is why I also said keep your happy news to yourself. But there can sometimes be a desire for overcompensation, maybe out of a fear of rejection, and maybe romantic relationships or just relationships in general. And so maybe we project this onto our career, where we work very hard in our professional life, maybe not as much as our personal life. So this kind of forces us to deal with some of our relationships all the way around. Maybe we have a good potential for success, especially since we're a workhorse and we work very diligently, but there could be depression or self-depreciation, where we don't really value ourselves. So all of the values kind of coming from ourselves. This can sometimes make people hide behind work, and maybe at the cost of really what's plaguing them in their relationships, their home life, maybe even their upbringing, how they were raised, and their dynamics with their family. We're very sensitive and inspired and vulnerable, and we really, really want people to like us. We can either be a crusader at this time, wasting all our resources but accomplishing nothing, and maybe we're looking for perfection in other people based off of the dynamics and things that we went through. At the end of the day, no one's perfect, so no one's ever going to feel or live up to this type of idea. So we have to take our blinders off and live life very realistically. If not, this is going to be probably a hard one for most people. The last thing I'll say before going is we really do have to get to the bottom of our family and home life, because those types of dynamics really make up how well we able to value ourselves, or what we want to live by, or how we want to live our lives. And that in the long term affects people's money. So if any of you guys listen to this and you say, hey, I have money issues, or I have issues with this, and I have an issue in resources, if you're any of these people who feel issues with self-esteem, especially lately, but especially under this full moon, that would be the 5th, self-esteem issues, resource issues, all this other stuff, we have to examine how good our self-esteem is. Are we living a fulfilled life? Are we hiding behind work? Do we have any talents or skills or resources that we aren't monetizing? Girl, I can braid, I know how to fix a car, I give the best haircuts. Those are skills that aren't monetized. So you're not broke, you're underutilized. You don't value yourself. You're not questioning what you're actually good at. And that happens a lot. So it just kind of makes us evaluate those types of things. And so I would really encourage everyone to sit down and think about their childhood, their home life, family, resources, and skills and talents that they have, and make adjustments there. Make adjustments in your daily life and take care of your health. You know, if anybody missed any appointments, or they need to go check something out, or there's this weird achy pain in the back of their neck, please go. All right. So right now, this is the end of the video. We'll be doing a part 2 where I talk about the rising signs and where kind of all of this Venusian moon energy is going to be impacting you. I love you. Be safe. Bye.
I love this chicken. Hi, Rudy.